Hello and welcome to this training video from the EXP group. Now this is a training video for CIMA E1 Enterprise Operations. It's an express course which aims to cover some of the key areas within the syllabus. It can be useful to set you up, to give you an overview of the paper, and it can also be useful as a sort of final reminder, a final revision of some of the key points. Now what I'd recommend you do at the start is to go to our website, which is www.theexpgroup.com, and download a copy of our free Express Notes. Download a copy of our free Express Notes for CIMA E1 Enterprise Operations, because these notes are going to be used during the delivery of this Express course. Okay, let's have a quick look now at Chapter 1. Now, Chapter 1 is talking all about the global business environment, all about the global business environment. Now, if we go down to the big picture, what do we mean by globalization? Now, the text here refers to globalization as the situation where local markets are increasingly dominated by global markets. So what does this mean? Well, there are various phrases which you may have heard, such as the world is getting smaller and people are looking for the same things. Globalization, in effect, is where people in different countries are wanting the same or similar things, and companies are reacting to that. What has caused globalization? Well as individuals wanting similar things, there's been items such as the removal of trade barriers. The enlargement of the EU, for example, in Europe has made it easier to trade between different countries. The internet and associated technology has made it easier to trade and to do business on a global scale. Okay, what we're going to have a look at now are a couple of theories just to get us started. And the first item here of what is really key knowledge is something called Pestel Analysis. Pestel Analysis. Some of you may have heard of it referred to as Pest Analysis or Slept Analysis. Sometimes people even say Le Pest Analysis. But we're going to refer to it as Pestel Analysis. And really it's just the same whether it's called Pestel, Pest or Slept Analysis. Now this theory, we're arguing here that global business is impacted by Pestel Analysis. What is Pestel Analysis? Pestel Analysis is where you look at the external macro environment, which surrounds an organization. So in simple terms, if this is the organization, Pestel is everything which is external to the organization. And Pestel, the term Pestel, comes from political, economic, social, moving down to the next page, technological, environmental, and legal. And under each of these headings, there can be an impact on the organization. For example, under the political heading, now first of all political, this could be global, national and local changes. So global could be regional, say the EU political view. National could be at the country level, and local could be at the regional level within a particular country. And things that could impact on the environment and hence impact on an organization could be taxation policies, for example. What about relationships between various countries as well? Now, again, we've got economic, which could also be at a global, regional and local level. And economic issues would be things such as recession, exchange rates. All of these things will have an impact on the organization. So remember here, we're looking at an organization, and then Pestel is all the external items that can impact on it. Okay, what about social? Within Pestel, the social side of things. Well, here we're talking about any changes in behaviour or expectations in society. What's happening on lifestyle, demographics, and so on. Is the general population becoming more health conscious, for example? That's a movement we're seeing in a number of countries. Technological. Okay, there's a lot happening over recent years with the internet, with hardware, with software. So all of these things, what is going to impact on the organisation? We've highlighted various items here: hardware, software, e-issues. What about global communications? How will all of these issues within the external Pestel environment impact on an organisation? Next one to look at, environmental. Now, in certain countries this is becoming quite a big issue, but what are the environmental considerations? Recycling, pollution, attitude of the media and the customers towards all of these items. And what should the organisation do to react to the environmental changes? Legal, in a way it's linked in quite heavily with political, but what are the changes or predicted changes to regional and national legislation? And regional, for example, the EU. Okay, the next theory we're going to have a quick look at is by a gentleman called Hofstede. Now, Hofstede looked at how international perspectives differ when it comes to culture within different countries. Now, this can be useful if an organisation is looking to expand into new countries, for example, to identify what are the cultures that are present within a particular country. Now, Hofstede identified 5 characteristics: power distance, individualism, masculinity, uncertainty, long-term orientation. And within each of these, there would be a spectrum where certain countries would be at one end, other countries would be at the other end, and there'd be countries at various levels within the middle. Now let's just look at each of these in detail. So first of all, power distance. What is meant by power distance? Power distance is asking the question, do countries or individuals within those countries accept inferior positions? Do they gladly accept inferior positions? So differences in power. Do they challenge authority, or do they readily accept authority? Individualism, the second one. Now this is talking about, does a particular country have a culture where people prefer to work individually, or do they prefer to work together as a group? So individualism is talking individually versus collectivism. The next one, masculinity. So how much focus is there on the different gender roles within a job? And Hofstede uses certain concepts here, such as the aim of teamwork, of working together in a team, and fairness being a feminine role, whereas a more masculine role is one of working towards career achievement and so on. Uncertainty, the next one. Is there a culture within a particular country where they try to reduce uncertainty? Reduce uncertainty going forward, or is it a culture of just accepting what will happen will happen? The final one, long-term orientation. So what is a country's attitude to change over time? Now, Hofstede, in effect, was not saying one culture is better than another. He was just identifying that there are different international perspectives on culture. Useful for when a company looks at expanding into another country, another culture, to see what the fit is going to be like. Now, the next thing to look at is emerging market multinationals. Now, the idea behind this is saying that in the past, many countries located manufacturing facilities in the developing countries. So manufacturing facilities were the dominant form of operating in the developing countries. But in recent years, this has changed so that it's now more service business elements are located within developing countries. Now, what's caused this? We saw within Pestel, for example, that technology, it's easier to make international phone calls. It's cheaper than it used to be. So that's led to maybe a growth in service businesses in developing countries. Call centres, help desks, because of the cheaper labour component, but the technology that enables phone calls to be routed to these countries has led to the increase in service businesses. Also, what we're seeing as well, what this next point is talking about, is multinational companies are now starting to originate from these so-called developing countries. So rather than multinationals being based in the developed countries and then using outsourcing, etc., to developing countries, it's almost vice versa. So the example we've got here, the Indian company Tata is now the owner of the UK car manufacturer Land Rover. So a so-called developing country investing in a developed country. Okay, now that finishes the first Express video we've got for CIMA paper E1. Thank you very much for listening.